Narrator, close your eyes. No, seriously, imagine this. You're standing on the edge of the Nile. The sun's rising over the horizon, glowing gold across the water. Palm trees sway gently in the breeze, and off in the distance, giant stone temples reach toward the sky. This isn't just any place. This is Egypt minus 3,000 years ago. But we're not talking pyramids and mummies in museums. We're talking about the real Egypt. The smells of bread baking in clay ovens. The sound of sandals scuffing along dusty streets. Kids laughing. Priests chanting. The buzz of markets. The rustle of linen clothes. The clatter of wooden tools. Now, sure, you've probably heard of pharaohs, kings and queens, dressed in gold, surrounded by servants. But what was life really like back then? Like, what was breakfast for a temple god? Did ancient teenagers sneak out at night? What did people believe about life, love, and the afterlife? To find out, we're diving into one of the most fascinating and mysterious periods in human history. We'll follow two of Egypt's most famous rulers, Tutankhamun, the boy who became king, and Ramses the Great, a man who wanted to be remembered forever. But this story isn't just about kings. It's about farmers and fishermen, mothers and midwives, craftsmen, soldiers, servants, all the people who made ancient Egypt come alive. So, buckle up. Forget everything you thought you knew. We're going way beyond pyramids and curses. We're stepping into the shoes, well, sandals, of the people who actually lived it. In ancient Egypt, religion wasn't just something you believed in. It was something you lived. Every moment, every breath was tied to the gods. For the average Egyptian, the world was full of divine forces. The Nile's flood, a gift from Hopi. The sunrise, the work of Ra, battling darkness to be reborn. Death, just the beginning of the journey to the afterlife, where Osiris waited to judge your soul. And Ramses, he wasn't just a pharaoh. He was the middleman between gods and people, a living bridge. He built temples, not just for worship, but for power. The bigger the temple, the stronger the divine connection. And the stronger he looked. Temple life. Temples like Karnak, Luxor, and Abu Simbel weren't quiet, peaceful places. They were alive, bustling with activity at dawn. Priests moving in silence. Scribes recording offerings. Incense filling the air. Chants echoing through stone halls. Only priests could enter the inner side. Every morning, before sunrise, they'd begin the rituals. Wash the god's statue, dress it in fine linen, anoint it with oils, offer food and drink. They treated these statues like living beings, because to them they were. At certain times, these statues would be taken out in elaborate processions, carried on sacred boats, followed by music, dancing, and crowds cheering. Personal beliefs and household worship. But religion wasn't just in temples, it was in every home. Most families had a little shrine, maybe just a shelf, with clay statues of gods like Bastet, Isis, or Thoth. People prayed for health, fertility, protection, and safe passage to the next life. They wore amulets shaped like scarabs or eyes, symbols of protection. They left food offerings in fields. They whispered prayers into the wind. Even simple jobs had gods. Scribes prayed to Thoth, mothers to Toret, fishermen to Sobek, the crocodile god. Ramses as a divine figure. Now here's where it gets interesting. Ramses didn't just worship the gods. He became one. In carvings, he's shown standing shoulder to shoulder with Ra and Amun. In temples, he's offering to the gods and receiving blessings from himself. That's not ego, that's strategy. If you wanted to keep control of millions, You had to make people believe you weren't just human. It worked. People bowed, not just to the throne, but to divinity itself. To speak against Ramses was to speak against the gods. Religion and time, the calendar itself was religious. Festivals marked the seasons, the flooding of the Nile, the birth of Horus, the New Year. During Opet festival, statues of Amun, Mut, and Khonsu were carried from Karnak to Luxor. It was a huge event. Music, food, parades, a spiritual reset button. In the end, religion in Ramses's Egypt wasn't just about faith. It was about identity. It explained the world, justified the rules, and united a civilization. In the time of Ramses II, being clean wasn't just about hygiene. To be dirty was to insult the gods. And Egyptians were some of the cleanest people in the ancient world. The priests, they shaved their heads, bathed 4 times a day, and wore pure linen, not because it smelled nice, but because it kept them ritually clean. They had to be spotless to serve the gods. Daily hygiene. Most people bathed daily, using water from the Nile or stored in clay jars. They used a mix of natron, salt, ash, and even crushed lotus petals to scrub. Soap, ancient Egyptian style. They shaved their bodies to avoid lice. Even the poorest families kept themselves tidy. And perfumes, huge part of the culture. They made oils from myrrh, cinnamon, and frankincense, not just for smelling good, but to cool the body and protect the skin from the desert heat. Toothbrushes, they chewed on frayed sticks and used powders made from ground pumice and salt. Yeah, it was rough, but at least it was something. Medicine and healing in Ramses's Egyptian medicine was shockingly advanced for its time. Doctors, or Senu as they were called, trained for years. They specialized. Eye doctors, dentists, stomach healers, even proctologists. Yes, they had a guy for that. They used surgical tools made of bronze, scalpels, forceps, hooks, and they could treat everything from broken bones to infected wounds. They stitched cuts, set fractures with splints, drained abscesses, and their success rate, not bad at all. Magic plus medicine. But Egyptian healing wasn't just science. It was spiritual too. They believed sickness came from angry gods or evil spirits. So, a typical treatment. It was a mix of medical recipe and magic spell. For a toothache, the doctor might grind up onion and beer, then chant a spell to drive out the demon inside the tooth. They had written medical texts, like the Ebers Papyrus, filled with over 700 remedies. Some legit, some, let's just say, creative. Like putting crocodile dung in wounds. Yeah, maybe skip that one. Ingredients and potions. Their pharmacies were stocked with wild stuff. Honey, moldy bread, garlic, frankincense, palm wine, lizard blood, crushed beetles. But honey actually works. It's antibacterial. They were onto something. And moldy bread sounds gross, right? But it contains penicillin-like compounds. They were doing this thousands of years before antibiotics. Mind, body, and spirit. To heal the body, they believed you also had to heal the soul. So they used amulets, prayers, incense, and music as therapy. It was all one system. No split between science and spirit. Under Ramses II, the empire had massive temple hospitals. Like at Umbu, places where doctors and priests worked side by side. You didn't just walk in for a checkup. You entered sacred ground. In the end, whether you were a priest in a temple or a farmer by the Nile, staying clean and healthy was more than survival. It was a ritual, a way of staying in balance with the gods and with the world around you. In ancient Egypt, death wasn't the end. It was the beginning of a much bigger journey. They didn't fear death the way we do today. They planned for it, prepared for it. Because, to the Egyptians, dying well was just as important as living well. The art of mummification, when someone died, especially someone wealthy or important, the body was taken to the emperor, and what followed was a sacred ritual, a process that could last over 70 days. Step 1. Purify the body. Wash it with palm wine and Nile water. Then came the hard part, removing the internal organs, liver, stomach, lungs, intestines, all placed in canopic jars, each protected by a special god. The brain pulled out through the nose with a hook. Yeah, it wasn't pretty. But the Egyptians believed the brain wasn't all that important. The heart, though, they left that inside, because it was the seat of emotion, thought, and judgment. Drying the body next, they packed the body in netron, a natural salt found along the Nile. It dried out the flesh completely, preserving it for eternity. After 40 days, they wrapped the body in linen strips, sometimes hundreds of meters long. Between each layer, they'd place amulets, scarabs, ankhs, eyes of Horus. Each one a spell, a protection, a passport to the afterlife. Finally, they placed the body in a series of coffins, each more beautiful than the last. The final resting place, a tomb, filled with food, drink, tools, furniture, pets, and treasures, everything needed for the next life, judgment, and the afterlife. But the real test came after burial, in the hole of two truths, before Osiris himself. There, the soul's heart was weighed against the feather of Ma, that goddess of truth and justice. If the heart was light, free of sin, the soul passed into paradise, the field of reeds. If not, it was devoured by Amit, the solitar, part lion, part crocodile, part hip, one bite, and gone forever. Why it all mattered so? Why go through all this? Why the salt, the jars, the spells, the tombs? Because to the Egyptians, life wasn't a straight line. It was a circle, a cycle, life, death, rebirth, just like the sun, just like the Nile. And Pharaoh Ramses II, he knew this better than anyone. His tomb, deep in the Valley of the Kings, was a gateway to eternity, a place where king and god could become one. Outro, a new chapter begins. Narrator, but what about the stories we haven't told yet? What was daily life like for a child growing up in a village by the Nile? What secrets still lie buried beneath the desert sands? And what happened when Egypt met the powers of the outside world? Greece, Rome, invaders and conquerors. The journey into ancient Egypt is just getting started. It only gets wilder.